Hello, hello. Okay, if you hear pages flipping, that's just because I'm going through my notes. But I couldn't wait to get this out. Things have been coming together so rapidly lately, and I just wanted to get these thoughts out there ASAP so other people could start thinking about this stuff and discussing it, as iron sharpens iron. Please feel free to leave comments or thoughts in the description below this video so we can all benefit from one another and hopefully learn together in love. Also, please feel free to email me at avoiceoftruthandlove@gmail.com. So again, the disclaimer, not saying that hey, I have it all figured out. With more study, more truth may be revealed. But this is just what I'm seeing right at this point. So earlier this year, I made an open-ended video titled "Enoch Calendar Explained in 6 Minutes: Leap Year, Month, Week, Day." Please see a link for this video in the description down below this video. So in a nutshell, in that video, I was sharing my progression of thoughts with you, and I was pointing out some subtle differences between varying versions of Enoch. Originally, there was a section of Enoch that led me to believe it might be talking about something related to the topic of a leap year, day, month, week, intercalation. Then, not long after that, a friend and I did some research to try to see how many versions of Enoch there were out there. We found several translated Ethiopian versions. I had a couple English versions, restored name version, etc. As I discussed in my previous video, I began to notice a difference in the numbers between these different versions of Enoch. In some of the versions, the numbers seem to imply something about a leap year, but then more than half of the versions we found seem to have a different set of numbers in this critical area of Enoch, which seemed to simply be restating the math for how many days the moon fell behind the cycle of the sun. So I'll have a picture showing my original notes. You'll notice how I appear to be going back and forth. When I read it for the first time, I thought the numbers appeared to be saying something about a leap year, so out to the left-hand side there I made a note with a question mark saying leap year. However, when I started stumbling onto these other versions of Enoch, you can see I crossed out some of the numbers and even crossed out my note about the leap year question. Because the new different numbers just appear to be restating info about the cycle of the moon falling behind the cycle of the sun. And the concept of the leap year, intercalation, whatever, just kind of went out the window. Anyway, eventually I stumbled upon a PDF document by John Minton which seemed to explain this concept of the leap year to my satisfaction, all except for one thing. He had to add a phrase to the original text of Enoch before the numbers could make any kind of sense. The phrase he added was some variation of this phrase, sets of 5. That's the phrase. And you can kind of see, I'll have a couple pictures showing his version with that added phrase versus another version that didn't have the phrase and just had different numbers that kind of were talking about the moon. And you can see this in my previous video. Now, I don't doubt this man, but it was always on my to-do list to try to verify where this set of 5 phrase was coming from. Similar to how we use the Strong's Concordance to verify words in the King James Bible. That's kind of what I was hoping to do. Someday I could find a concordance to confirm this sets of 5 phrase. I didn't have much success at finding a concordance for Enoch. If someone knows where I can get my hands on one of these, please let me know. That would be so cool. But I did eventually hear communications from John where he confirmed that this added sets of 5 phrase was his logical assumption in order to make those numbers work out. And when I heard that, more than ever I wanted to find a concordance to verify this phrase. And again, not that I doubted the man's integrity, but I just wanted to be faithful, to prove all things, study, show myself approve, and be accountable at an individual level. Anyway, the book of Enoch says that the sun and the stars, not the moon, we'll talk about the moon another time. Again, the sun and the stars bring the days of the year in with perfect justice to 364 days. And I eventually started to hear more and more about people confirming by physical observation this 364-day cycle of the sun and the stars. And I have links for that below. In the description below. Jerry Morris was doing a good job of this with the sun, and another guy was doing a good job of proving this 364-day cycle with the stars. And in his star video, he talked about the days being 1 minute off. I have a picture that kind of explains where he was coming from with that. If you want, pause the video to kind of just study these numbers. Anyway... So it seems the sun and the stars are indeed on a 364-day cycle, just as Enoch stated. If Jerry Morris and these other people are truly accurate at their physical observations. I encourage everyone to learn how to confirm these cycles of the luminaries for themselves. Please see my sundial video series in the description below for suggestions on how to do this. So where does that leave us? At this point, I began to wonder if the concept of a leap year, intercalation, etc., might not just be something the Gregorian calendar people made up. It's something they made up to make their calendar work out. And us, coming from that system, that's what we are familiar with, we've kind of just been programmed to think this is something that's required to keep time properly. It's baggage we're still carrying with us. But perhaps it's actually not something that is required for the Creator's calendar. Again, think simple. Okay, so think about it for a second. The book of Enoch says the sun and the stars, again, not the moon, bring the year into 364 days with perfect justice. That's huge. And like I said, people are claiming this has been confirmed by physical observation. I'm working on confirming this myself, and I encourage you to all do the same. So these observations seem to support what Enoch says about there being 364 days between spring equinoxes. Always has, always will be, I think. So then this means that the seasons it doesn't necessarily. The seasons are based off of the positions of the sun in the sky. In fact, I recently remember seeing a section in Enoch where it actually describes the features of the seasons as signs that would follow the heavenly signs. I'll have a picture for a section of that. And on that note, I actually just re-listened to it, and I remember way back when I listened to Enoch for the first time, or was starting to pay attention to the calendar section, I noticed it seemed this section was cut short and there was a chunk missing, and so you'll see a picture of the section, and it kind of describes the first two seasons of the year, spring and summer, and then it just kind of switches gears and doesn't mention fall and winter. But anyway, the interesting thing is perhaps that's why we have the Creator stressing the things like, this shall be the beginning of months for you, the month Abib, because, based on the sun's position in the sky, it's going to bring the seasons on. So seasonal drift is a non-issue from the Creator's perspective. 364-day calendar versus 365, non-issue. The seasons, spring for example, will always follow the spring equinox by more or less the same amount of days, no matter if that happens to be in April, May, according to the Gregorian calendar, or if it happens to be in December or January by the Gregorian calendar reckoning. The seasons may drift around in the Gregorian calendar, however that crazy system calendar was designed to work, but they will always be in perfect harmony with the cycles of the Creator's heavenly luminaries. Jerry Morris had a video titled Something Abib Part 3. I have a link for that video in the description down below. But he talks about how in his long life, combined with the long life of his parents, he can confirm that the seasons have been moving around in the Gregorian calendar. He gave an example of his parents telling him they remembered harvesting like a month later in the year, back in the day. Then he explained that people don't tend to notice this because the change is so gradual, like slowly turning the heat up under a frog in a bowl of water. The frogs would sit there until you boil them to death because the change in temperature is so gradual they won't notice. That was his example, not mine. But it does make sense. Again, think about the 364-day cycle of the sun and the stars mentioned in Enoch. I don't think that's going to change. Think about it. The angel told Enoch these timepieces, the sun and the stars, brought in the days of the year with perfect justice. So if for some reason someone thinks we need to do some kind of leap year intercalation to stay in sync with the Gregorian calendar, they're going to disturb that 364-day cycle of the luminaries. That's important. Think about that for a second. Like, okay, and I think that's because they're associating the seasons with the Gregorian calendar instead of associating the seasons with the location of the sun up in the sky. Like, depending on where that sun is in the sky is what's going to control the seasons. Seasons are going to follow the location of the sun in the sky, not the Gregorian calendar. But like, so I think people, like I said, they just kind of, for some reason, they think they need to make a leap year because maybe they're only looking at the Gregorian calendar and they're associating, well, spring according to the Gregorian calendar is going to happen here. But in order to make any kind of change, if they make any kind of adjustment, they're going to break that 364-day cycle of the luminaries. Like, trust me, I don't think the luminaries are ever going to make some kind of adjustment to their 300-day cycle, 64-day cycle. So again, I personally haven't been able to observe a full year cycle, so right now I'm taking the word of people like Jerry Morris, etc., who have claimed this, but someday soon I hope to confirm this for myself to see whether these claims are true, as I think we all should. Okay, so now back to what I was saying about the different versions of Enoch and John Mitton's sets of 5 phrase assumption. As I mentioned, lately I've been trying to figure out where that came from. It has big implications, it takes numbers that didn't make any sense, and through some math it seems to create and justify some sort of intercalation. However, again, how this intercalation is supposed to work without messing up the 364-day cycle of the sun and the stars is something I'm not sure John Mitton has been thinking about. I wonder if maybe he's just been thinking that's what he needs to do to keep things in sync with the Gregorian calendar, not realizing that the seasons are not falling. They're not going to happen by the Gregorian calendar. They'll happen by the sun. Like, the spring is always going to follow the spring equinox by more or less the same amount of days, no matter what time of Gregorian calendar year that follows on. So I don't know. I think maybe Jerry Morris and John Mitton might need to talk. It's hard to say whose claim might be an error at this point. We need to observe and prove the cycles for ourselves. Like right now, we're kind of taking Jerry's word for it, or we're taking John's word for it. I'll talk more about that later. But again, back to the other versions of Enoch that my friend and I discovered. Earlier this year, we found like 3 Ethiopian versions, 1 or 2 Aramaic versions, some short name version. Then, in looking in the different versions, I was surprised to discover that the numbers were not matching version to version. Actually, more than half of the versions seem to have a different set of numbers in this critical section where John Mitton added his sets of 5 phrase a few times. And this different set of numbers seem to be simply restating how many days the cycle of the sun was ahead of the moon. And again, the leap year time intercalation concept kind of went out the window. Again, when I saw this, I immediately decided that these translations with the different numbers must be in error, because I was looking for something to support the concept of the leap year intercalation. Like I said, that was where I came from. That was what I understood, the Gregorian calendar. So clearly I need to find something that's going to support that concept. You know what I mean? It's baggage that came along as we're coming out of deception into truth, and it's something that I thought I had to be looking for in the Creator's calendar, but maybe not. But anyway, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm starting to wonder if these other translations were perhaps not actually the correct accounts. Keep in mind the original version I saw, that seemed to suggest some sort of intercalation was being implied, is pretty much meaningless and potentially just a translation error without John Mitten's sets of 5 phrase assertion addition. So all of a sudden, that perspective doesn't look like it has any solid legs to stand on. Again, I'm not saying anything against John Mitten. This is potentially just the progression of truth. You know, he carried the torch that far, and now new revelation has come, or maybe I'm completely wrong and he's right. You know, so this is by no means a reprimand or insult to John Mitten. You know, he, as I stated before, he admitted that the sets of 5 assertion was his logical assumption. He's not hiding anything. So this is just iron sharpening iron. I'm putting some thoughts out there to sharpen others and potentially myself in love. So I'm going to pull up a section of John Mitten's calendar PDF. Well, actually, I believe he has a copyright of some sort on his PDF, so I'm just going to tell you, at one point he said something more or less stating, and you can go find his PDF and confirm this for yourself, but he said something more or less, Yah was very aware of the actual 365-day 0.22 day cycle of the sun and the stars, and tells us how it works in Enoch 74, more or less. So he is saying that the sun and the stars have a 365.22 day cycle, which isn't what Enoch says, and I wonder if he's just thinking that just because his mind is still thinking the Gregorian calendar has a hold on him. You know, it's just, and it's not that he's into the Gregorian calendar, but he's just some concepts of that calendar are still kind of being applied to the Creator's calendar that might not necessarily need to be applied. So I wonder if he's even realized people like Jerry Morris, you know, have theoretically proved that the sun and stars are actually on a 364-day cycle. John Mitten seems to be saying, you know, there were 364 days in the yearly cycle, and that implies the need for some sort of intercalation or leap year. I meant to say 365.22 days. John Mitten is saying 365.22 days. So again, who's right? John Mitten or Jerry Morris? I think we need to be diligent to confirm the cycles of the luminaries for ourselves to ultimately answer this question. So right now I'm not going to... I'm just putting information out there for everyone to be aware of. Okay, so this is my last page. Let me try and give an example to further illustrate this point of John Mitten and potentially hanging on to some things of the Gregorian calendar. When I started waking up to the importance of paying attention to the Creator's timepieces and their cycles as a means to confirming the Creator's calendar, I was faced with the reality that the actual observable, confirmable day of the solar spring equinox was not the same day that Google was proclaiming, and I've seen several people in that boat. Likewise, if you look at my Fall Equinox 2017 video, I mentioned that Google, the Washington Post, and people with Sundials were all saying different days for the Fall Equinox. The point being, if two reputable sources such as Google and the Washington Post disagree on the timing of this solar event, that should be a hint that we should be out there and confirm what we're being told. Likewise, in John Mitten's case, and anyone else who thinks the leap year, day, week, month, time, intercalation thing is necessary, it might be possible that they're just following the Gregorian proclaimed number of days in the year, similar to how I just mentioned people were following the Google proclaimed equinox, which wasn't actually true. Like, it's 365.22 days might not actually be true. Like, but actually, the observable, the yearly observable confirmable cycle of the sun and the stars is 364 days, theoretically. Some people might have to see that to believe if it is in fact true. But in a situation, I believe all people should see and confirm these things for themselves. Have I said that enough times? I'll say it again later. So anyway, another quick note. I don't want us to get hung up on words like equinox and solstice. Some people I've noticed have been doing this, and maybe we don't need to use those words, but it's kind of like the zodiac. Just because the zodiac exists, and the pagans hijacked the stars and created this thing called zodiac and all this mumbo-jumbo with it, this doesn't mean that the stars and the shapes of things that they make up there or their cycles are pagan and or shouldn't, we shouldn't pay any attention to the stars because of those pagan associations. The stars and their cycles were created before the paganism crept in. Likewise, some people might take issue with the word equinox or solstice and say they have some kind of pagan roots. Realize that, these are just words used to describe the cycle or the stations of the sun, which our Creator masterfully created. So if those words bother you, you don't need to use them. You can say these days can be referred to as the longest day of the year. That would be the summer solstice, longest day of the year. The shortest day of the year would be the winter solstice, and then the 2 days in the spring and the fall that have equal light and darkness are the spring and fall equinoxes. So you can call them longest day of the year, shortest day of the year, or day of equal light and darkness in the spring or fall. Okay, anyway, back to the point. Keep things simple. It seems at this time, further study could prove otherwise, but it seems at this time that it might just be a 364-day calendar with no leap year, intercalation, etc. And the sun and the stars confirm this cycle. 364 days. Round and round we go. No seasonal drift because the seasons are dependent on the location of the luminaries in the heaven. There's only something funky going on with the Gregorian calendar and its concept of a leap year. And if you think about it, whatever the Gregorian calendar has going on, I think it's just man's attempt at trying to the best of his pathetic abilities to stay in sync with the Creator's seasons without actually following his calendar. Almost like it was made up. Think about it. Why are we in the year 2017? What happened 2017 years ago that someone felt the need to start a new count? Were they trying to disconnect or disassociate from the Creator's calendar and times and start afresh with some new calendar? I plan to be looking into the history of this next. Anyway, This could also explain the priestly order, if you ever heard mention of that. It might explain why the priestly order works out so seamlessly, because there's never any need for any kind of adjustment or intercalation to be performed. The priestly order just goes round and round year upon year with never any need for an adjustment. The priestly order is something that has kind of gone over my head at this point, but theoretically, I don't know if I've heard anyone talk too much on if the priestly order shows some kind of intercalation, but I want to mention if it seems that it might, you never know. We just might all need to study this more. Who knows? Because I when I started reading Enoch in the calendar section, remember I wanted to find something that would justify the leap year. I was almost creating something that didn't exist, and potentially a couple errors just helped to create that to be fact. There may potentially be something going on with the priestly order too, if someone is saying that there needs to be an intercalation. I don't think there does, but I could be wrong. So, one final thought. I think Enoch does talk about some sort of seasonal drift as a prophetic, dramatic last day event. Though I believe the 364-day cycle of the sun will not be violated, I suppose the path through the portals which the sun takes might change, and this would cause the seasons to change. You know how South America gets winter when we get summer? And actually, I think Enoch talks about the sun doing just this. Something about the sun riding in the chariot on the extremity, something about that. But anyway, in summary, there might that was near the end of the calendar section of Enoch, or the luminary section. And by the way, there is no calendar in Enoch. All Enoch does is, it's the only writing I've seen that defines the cycles of the luminaries with such amazing and exact detail, but it doesn't lay out the order of holy days, though it does mention festivals several times. But anyway, one final thought. I think Enoch does talk about some... No, wait, yeah, I already said that. In summary, there might not be a need for a leap day. So think about this. Leap day comes from the Gregorian calendar. And then you've got leap month. You've heard that from the lunar calendar, because sometimes they have that 13-month. And then, and I don't think there's going to be a leap week either. I've been hearing about that lately in these solar circles. I think John Minton was saying at some point we throw in a leap week. But there just might not be a need for any adjustment or intercalation if it is true that the cycle of the luminaries is 364 days. And again, Jerry Morris is claiming that's true. John Minton is saying 365.22 days, but that might just be because he's never looked at the cycles of the luminaries for himself. I'm not sure. We need to confirm that for ourselves. But yeah, the main question to be asking yourself at this point is, if the sun and the stars are truly on an unaltering 364-day cycle, which everyone can confirm this for ourselves, where's the need for any kind of adjustment if those luminaries are truly on that cycle? If it's confirmed beyond a doubt, 364-day cycle of these, where's the need for any kind of adjustment? Okay, so to summarize the Creator's calendar, because it seems I haven't really done that too well in any single video, here it is, in my current understanding. Learn how to determine the 4 yearly stations of the sun. If you can successfully confirm just one of these beyond any doubt, either the equinoxes or the solstices, then you will have succeeded in confirming a stationary point in the 364-day cycle of the year. And you can keep count of the days and the years from there. Because Enoch describes, the cycle between the luminaries as 30 days, 30 days, 30 days, 1 day, 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 and that gives you 364 days, and just kind of round and round you go. But anyway, yeah, according to my current understanding, the day following the spring equinox would give you the start of the year. And your months would start counting from day 1 of the year. So day 1 of the year would equal day 1 of the first month. From there, you could count 30 days per month. See my video on the topic of month. Then add the extra intercalary days at the end of 3 months. But I think it gets even simpler than that. If you've confirmed the 364-day cycle, then the spring equinox will do the rest. You don't even need to count months. Notice all of the Creator's holy days, are able to be counted from the first day of the year, the day following the spring equinox, and also the fall feasts are able to be counted from the first day of the 7th month, the day following the fall equinox. So again, it might not even be necessary to worry about the months for determining the holy days of your Creator. Again, please see my months video for more info on the monthly cycle. That being said, I don't claim to have it all figured out, but that's my current understanding. Please feel free to email me your thoughts, or leave them in the comments below, or email them to me at avoiceoftruthandlove@gmail.com. I think I made a mistake. I have half a page left, and the sun's going down. Okay. And to those who struggle, and to those who struggle with Enoch, and who desire to prove these things from the scriptures alone, this has the potential to be really simple. If you believe the sun, moon, and the stars are to be understood and used as the Creator's timepieces, as stated in Genesis 1:14, then it's possible you might not even need to open the Book of Enoch to understand the Creator's times. Just start looking up and paying attention at the cycles of the heavenly luminaries, the Creator's timepieces. the sun, the moon, and the stars, and they will speak for themselves, confirming the 364-day cycle described in Enoch. Then read the Noah's Ark account, where it's possible to determine that there were 30 days in a month cycle. All the picture showing that math. And then look at the scriptures to discover that the moon is wrongfully associated with the phrase new month, and, there's a completely different Hebrew word for month as there is for moon. I have a video talking about that. Maybe I'll have a picture giving you some examples in that whole 12 versus 13 month thing. And so whenever you see that phrase new month, it means new month, and it should never be saying new moon. There's a different word for moon in the original Hebrew as there is for month, and so it's, when you read that phrase new month, or new moon, it really, I forget which one it is, but it really is saying new month, not necessarily new moon. I think look at the original Hebrew for that. But finally, I think, and my video, like I said, on months. Finally, I think you would put a big smile on your Heavenly Father's face if you tried to get out and confirm the sun's upcoming winter solstice, or the shortest day of the year. Like I said, we have 4 opportunities per year to confirm the stations of the sun. That longest day, shortest day, and then the 2 equal ones in the spring and the fall. And that's coming up in a couple short weeks. I think somewhere around December 20-ish, give or take a few days in either direction-ish. But it's coming up, and trust me, it's not hard to do. All you need to do is have a handful of those little garden construction flags, and get 2 sets of colors so you can keep your data points and markers separate from day to day, and then just watch and mark the shadow caused by the corner of your house roof. And you can see my Sundial series in the description below for more instructions on how you can accomplish this. Wouldn't it be nice if we had 100 or so people confirming the Creator's times and the stations of the sun, the equinoxes, and the solstices, instead of just 2 or 3 people? Because right now we just kind of have 2 or 3 people, but if we had 100, that'd be nice. So on that note, please email me at avoiceoftruthandlove@gmail.com to confirm the days that you observe the equinoxes and solstices on, so we can share this info with our brothers and sisters who might not have been able to confirm this for themselves because of overcast weather or whatnot. Again, I'm not claiming all knowledge here. With further study, other things may be discovered, but I just wanted to share this info ASAP so we could get some iron sharpening iron going. As my friend put it recently, sword play, iron sharpening iron, sword play, in love. So shalom, and Yah bless as you continually seek after him and his truths with a pure heart.